Another element, and again, this is going into the next topic, but one of the things that makes anime what it is comes down to the business. Because 2D animated films, the way they do it, have much lower cost. Again, I don't know what it is right now, especially with the use of some of the computer work that they've done. But earlier, let's say up to 2000 or so, you could make a full-length feature animated film for about $6 million. Now that's, at that time, 1/10 to 1/20 what a feature film would do. So if you're only doing paying $6 million, but it's a feature film and some of it's going to be on the screen, you can make your money back. But at the same time, that gives you a freedom to focus in on whatever demographic you want to. Now on a heavy action film, you have what was Roger Ebert's, time and time again I heard him on the shows, say that his favorite anime film was, which was Akira. Well, that's a very hard-hitting, some parents said that they were disappointed that their kids had watched it, but even though I said, well, it was still an internationally award-winning film, and it's considered one of the top ones, but it takes to the parent who looks at their teenage, even though the age rating is for that age, they say they're still looking at their daughter or son as being, they're still their children. So again, but that's one of the binds that anime has, and we may touch on that a little bit. But I just wanted to go into that one. When I say that every generation has their pop culture, I would like to go back to the fact that as a dealer, as a vendor who believes in what some of the writers and directors are doing, even though Inuyasha is very lighthearted, it's light comedy, light drama, I saw something that I thought I wouldn't see. Now, when you think of the screaming fangirls who jumped up and down for Elvis Presley, the parents who saw their daughters jumping up and down for the Beatles, who, when they grew up, saw their daughters jumping up and down for Michael Jackson, well, about 5 years ago or so, about the time I was opening the store, they had the entire cast of Inuyasha over at a convention, OhioCon in Columbus, Ohio. Well, 90% of everybody in the room were teenage girls, and when the cast came out, all these girls were jumping up and down, and even though the floor was cement, I could feel a little bit of give in this concrete floor, and dang it, there was no difference between these girls and the girls who jumped up and down for Elvis. And that's what it's all about. You know, so, again, when you're talking about pop culture and how important it is, everybody needs to feel, I have something that's for me that I can identify with. And yet at the same time, I want to add that pop culture is something, and being a teenager is very, very tough because you have two extremely paradoxical things going on at once. You have somebody growing up that says, I have to be the individual. And a lot of animes are about coming of age and about relations, about coming there. And yet at the same time, you have the urge to conform, to go into a group. If you're with a group, you have to act like, you know, and do things about them. But how do you do both? And that is very, very tough. And so, and because each generation has something a little different with what's going on around them, right now, let's say social networking, or you have this, if you look, there's several teenage shows where even in the 60s and 50s, which sadly, yes, I was there. I remember the girl would be constantly on the phone and the mother would have to say, get off the phone because I have to use it. Well, now they're texting. But it's the same. The more things change, the more they stay the same, but how do we work on it? How do we develop it? How do we make it meaningful in a way that's entertaining and we want to actually have it? And that's one of my main things about what's going on with the latest Cartoon Network series is they're doing a lot of flash work, the comedy is on the cheaper side, but I couldn't sell, to save my life, some of the shows that they're doing because nobody really wants them. There's nothing to the heart to it. So anyways, sorry if I get off my soapbox. And again, if we're talking about something for the younger demographic, I said that a 6-year-old is fascinated by some of the experiences and things in Pokemon that maybe 9 to 12-year-old would be doing. Well, if we're talking about a teenager, we really don't see too much on TV about relationships. We don't see how to develop a positive relationship with guys or the girl. It's very superficial, and you're not seeing really some of the substance that's there. But on the other hand, if you look at some of the dialogue and the feel of, let's say, Inuyasha, or especially things like Ouran High School Host Club, or even the early Lump series from the early 80s, and you close your eyes and listen to some of the style of the dialogue, and then you go back and think of what some of the Annette Funicello movies and TV shows were like, there are a lot of aspects that are very, very similar, so they got it right. And again, I want to add one more thing about Inuyasha, is the fact that when I look at it, I say, okay, you got a cross between the pirate movies and the Sinbad movies or the Hercules movies. Because Hercules was big, strong, but he'd invariably get himself into some sort of trouble. Well, in some of the pirate movies, sometimes you had this very sophisticated girl who fell for the bad boy pirate, but after a while she would do a couple of things or involved that actually calmed him down or elevated his thinking to something that was more closer to her level. Well, in Inuyasha, she's the brains of the outfit. So why so many girls like Inuyasha when the girl's the brains of the outfit, I can't figure out. The other thing is, when I say about play being a preparation for adulthood, in certain ways, I think we actually need to do a little bit more, and anime has touched on this, but maybe not enough. But again, they're still driven by what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in the marketplace. But being able to see the mistakes made on screen versus what's them making it in their real life. I talked to quite a few teachers from quite a few different school systems, and invariably, some teenage girl always ends up pregnant. But if there was some way to visualize the outcomes, the social outcomes, the physical outcomes, and say, you know, this is what could happen, and this is, because you're young, it shouldn't happen. But saying that is one thing. Being able to have a presentation that, so the person viewing it can understand it, is another. And I know that an anime called Brigadoon, which has no relation to the musical whatsoever, starts off with the one girl being bullied. There's a show called Risky Safety, where the first couple of episodes, from a grade school point of view, and this one's out of print, but it is excellently written, I think it should be easily done as an off-Broadway play, is teen suicide from the teen's point of view. It's a comedy and it works. Now that is a way that if somebody sees somebody who's depressed in a classmate, well, they may recognize that depression. They might be able to help them out or at least talk to somebody else. But how do we fashion what that depression or what that feeling is actually like before we do it? Well, in this show, it turns out that the demon and devil, or the angel and demon, are actually vying for her soul. But because it's Asian and not American, the Asian point of view with the Asian religion is that it's the demon and devil within you. Richard Pryor, I believe, said that the devil made me do it. And somebody from Japan would say no, or China would say no. The devil within you said to do it, but you chose to listen. So the responsibility is still yours. Now, the point of this show, what made it such a comedy was that the demon and Risky and Safety are so humorous that even though the demon is trying to take her soul, he's so cute and so loving that she can't help but laugh. And that lifts her spirit. So once her spirit's lifted, then he goes away and Safety comes out. And each knows of each other's existence, and at one point, Risky writes a nasty note to Safety, but Safety couldn't write a nasty note back to save her life. But there are, most of the episodes have a little bit of a moral character, and by the end of the series, you actually have their bosses who are about to go head to head to each other, and they feel they're about to screw things up, so they actually combine to say, hey, calm down everybody, and like anybody who does something right, in spite of their boss's intentions, they get punished for it, but they really don't mind because they knew they did the right thing. Okay. But again, that's what can be done with a show that it isn't, this is the moral, we're going to hit you over the head with it. No, you bring a person into it and let them explore with what's going on screen, and that's what it's about. Before I go into the film side of things, there is just, I don't know if I said this specifically, but these days, for the teenagers, in a way, when I look at things and when I go back to what it was like when I was growing up, I actually feel sorry for them because the world has changed so much. Just the other day, I heard the fact that they had what they referred to as a second family and sexual revolution, whereby when I was growing up, you had a lot of the relationships that were extremely stable happened in high school. You had the mother, you had the girl going to work so that he could go to college, and then the family grew, and you had all of that. Now, you can't. I mean, it's impossible. Did you like the show so far?
Yeah, I did.
Good. I just want to make sure you're walking out on my account.
Cool. No.
Come back sometime and you'll maybe catch the other half of it. Have a nice day.
Thanks, we really enjoyed it so far.